Good afternoon. I'm George Latimer, Westchester County Executive, and this is our weekly Westchester update for Monday, September 20th. I'm here today with a very special guest, and we'll go over some information about COVID and Hurricane Ida. I'll be joined in a few minutes by Deputy County Executive Ken Jenkins. However, right now, our lead guest is a very important person in New York State and a very good friend of mine over the years. We've served together in the New York State Senate. We've served together in the Westchester County Legislature. She is a leader not just in this county, but across the state. And I've invited State Senator Majority Leader Andrea Stewart-Cousins to join us for this session to give us an update on some of the critical issues that are happening in the state of New York. Whatever happens in Westchester, we are very much looking forward to Albany for Andrea's leadership and the leadership of the chamber that she leads and the rest of the state legislature and the governor. So without any further ado, the State Senate Majority Leader, my friend Andrea Stewart-Cousins. Senator.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, County Executive, and it is really a pleasure to be here with you. We have had an extraordinary partnership during the time that both you and I have been in government, and I'm sure George, as he talks about how many different roles he's played, he does not forget the role that he played as a county legislator and as the chair of the board, where we were able to do some amazing things together. So that amazing work continues, and I appreciate that. So here we are in the midst of a transition, and I have to keep being reminded that the new governor, Governor Kathy Hochul, has been governor for only 3 weeks. This has been a very, very difficult time for all of us. Nobody wanted to see this kind of disruption in government, but I think it has to be clear that we are repositioned and we understand that New Yorkers expect us to get on with our work. I think just a little bit of explanation. I know I was one of the earliest voices that talked about the previous governor's need to resign. And I want to say that I was willing certainly to wait for the official documentation, but at that point there had been so many allegations in so many different areas, and we had such an important job to do in the state. It was of concern that much focus would be taken away from New York State and the critical issues we were facing and really sort of surrounding the governor. That being said, I think the Attorney General did a remarkable job in terms of outlining what happened. And I also want to say to people, and I think you all know this, it's very, very difficult to stand up against powerful people in powerful places. So I do want to commend the 11 women who had come forward and say that we are definitely in a new place in government. And that being said, I stood with the governor just last week to where she signed this bill, which is less is more. And I talk about less is more because so many people in the Westchester community were really interested in making sure that particular bill got signed. And what that does, it says that once you've paid your debt to society and you are on parole, rather than being violated for minor technicalities and being sent back to jail, you will not be violated and sent back to jail for technicalities. So, I mean, when you look at things that were sending people back to jail, sometimes it was because they were late for an appointment. Maybe they missed an appointment. There were a host of things that could wind people back in jail. What we are trying to do, again, is bring justice to the justice system. And we want to be helpful in terms of people who need to reintegrate into our society, being able to reintegrate into the society without having to worry about if they're 5 minutes late, they'll go back to jail. So less is more was signed by the governor. Again, she's been there 3 weeks and she's got almost 1,000 bills that she has to decide what to sign and what not to sign. So I am happy that she did that. It is, again, marking a new look at our criminal justice system and how, again, we can make sure that we are not leading the nation in the rate of incarceration, especially when it comes to technicalities and minor violations that keep people from being productive citizens. So that was that. And I talk about criminal justice because obviously it's so important to so many here, but the other side of that is education. And this government, my senators, the Senate that I lead, and certainly with my partners in the Assembly and Westchester's delegation, we have been really clear about how we know education matters and that education is the key. And investing in our children early on, whether it's pre-K, whether it's after-school programs, child care, the kinds of supports that children need so that we are not paying terrible prices to society at the other side of their lives, I think is extremely important. And that's why I'm happy to say that we had an unprecedented investment in education. During this pandemic, people said, oh, it is so clear that there is a disparity, the inequities in society were laid bare, and we knew that everybody who did remote learning, frankly, didn't have the resources that you would want every child to have, whether it was no broadband or laptops. There were so many things that made it very, very difficult for children to be able to keep up in many places during this pandemic. So while we were negotiating the budget, it was very, very clear to me that we had an opportunity. We had an opportunity to honor what we said we understood were the inequities, and we also had an opportunity, while we were talking about how we address them, to put more resources where we know it mattered. So we were able to make that commitment to repay our schools. This has been a very long and drawn out, unfortunately, multi-decade fight about what is owed to schools, especially those schools who were socially disadvantaged, economically disadvantaged, and in so doing, by not recognizing what was owed to those schools, other schools were shortchanged as well. So this was the year that Speaker Hastie and myself decided that we were going to make sure that we make the commitment to pay back all of the money that was due to our education systems across New York State. So that means that Westchester, for example, got an additional $118 million in school funding. It was, again, close to $1 billion now in state funding. It is a 14% increase. And it is, again, a commitment to make sure that any money that was owed schools during the past, 10, 15 years will be paid in the next 3 years. This is outstanding because, again, education matters. We also care about pre-K. And so there was, again, an additional $4.4 million put into universal pre-K. They called it universal pre-K on the state level, but the reality was it was mostly New York City and some places outside. But now this Senate, this Assembly, our legislature decided that we want to make universal pre-K universal. And that means that by investing more money, more school districts will be able to offer pre-K to 4-year-olds. And by putting that additional $4.4 million into the coffers of these school districts, we were able to create another 800 slots. And that's right here in Westchester County. And again, it goes a long way. When children are ready to learn, and that extra year before they get into kindergarten sometimes makes all the difference in terms of being familiar with vocabulary and socialization. It makes a difference in terms of their opportunity to succeed. We wanted to make sure that we give as many children as possible that pre-K experience. If it is certainly needed, we want parents to have that option. And again, like the K through 12 funding, the universal pre-K, it is our intention that universal pre-K be available in the next 3 years across the entire state. Obviously, we have a terrible situation with the eviction, and that was the other very important thing we were able to do with new Governor Hochul upon almost the week that she was sworn in. It was very, very clear that once the federal government had struck down the CDC's eviction moratorium, it was now left to the states. And when we looked at New York State, we had a couple of problems. One, we had been extending our eviction moratorium because, again, we don't want anyone to lose their home during this terrible pandemic while we are struggling to get past it. And again, I want to thank the county for the efforts, our coordinated efforts, and certainly your efforts, Mr. County Executive, in terms of really making sure that Westchester continues to get people vaccines and make people safe. But that being said, we had moved our eviction moratorium's end date to August 31st. However, it turns out that we, in 50 states, only 4 weeks ago, was number 50 in getting the money out the door. So again, I want to thank our great congressional representatives, certainly Majority Leader Schumer and Senator Gillibrand and all of my congressional colleagues, because they made sure that we had over $2 billion in this state to help stave off evictions and help people stay in their homes. However, the previous administration did not get that money out the door. So we were number 50 of 50 states in not getting the money out. I knew, and the governor knew, Speaker Hastie knew, that, and obviously all of my colleagues understood, on my side of the aisle in any case, that we needed to extend this moratorium so that people would get the benefit of not only the congressional money, but additional state money that had been put into the coffers in order to stave off evictions. So now we have extended the eviction moratorium until January 15th of next year. We are hoping, obviously, that we are well out of this pandemic and this won't be, needed to go beyond that date, but we also needed to be able to get the money out so that the small businesses, the tenants, small landlords have the resources they need in order to continue leading their lives as best they could. So the eviction moratorium has been extended. If you need to call, we're still taking applications. It's 1-844-NY1-RENT, 844-NY, the number 1 rent, and you could apply. The other thing that's important to note about this eviction moratorium extension is that there were certain municipalities, including my home city of Yonkers, that had opted out of the state program. And they are now running out of resources, and still there is need. So we have, in this legislation, allowed for those places that had opted out to be able to apply to the state program so that the protections, if you are available, and this is important to know, if you are eligible for these funds, then the protection with these funds extends for a whole year, for 12 months. So that's why it's important to, if you are in need, to find out if you are eligible, to apply, and then apply if you are, and then obviously if you are able and are eligible, then the protection lasts for a year. But people whose municipalities had not opted into our program did not have that protection. Our legislation and what was signed allows for those municipalities whose people are still in need to come directly to our program. The other thing that I think is important to note is that we are still very, very clear that we have a lot to do in terms of the environment. I think this storm certainly proved to us that we are not ready. However, my Senate delegation, my conference is ready. We have advanced, and next year there will be a $3 billion bond on the ballot that hopefully the people of New York State will approve so that we can invest resources into shoring up our infrastructure. It is so important that we stop pretending that these types of catastrophic weather incidents are just something that happens every 100 years. We know better. That's not the case. I'm happy that on a federal level, on a state level, county level, local level. We are all understanding that climate change is real. It is here upon us, and together we are doing everything we can in order to create an environment that allows for us to be able to withstand these very, very difficult storm incidents. And so, again, we are working, the governor was here, I think it was September 3rd, and we toured some of Yonkers, and I know she was over on the Sound Shore with the county executive as well. And it's very, very clear that we are all coming together to try and find the relief that people need, as well as to prepare for the next incident. And so I think that's important to note. There are a lot of things that I could talk to you about, but I think it's important that you know that we are working. We are always trying to figure out ways that we can partner with our other levels of government in order to bring New Yorkers the best government possible. Obviously, if you need to reach me, you can go onto the New York Senate website. You can find me, but hopefully I will find you, because I am in the community as much as possible, because I understand that I represent you best when I can actually see what it is you're experiencing, and hope to be able to create some new ways in order to make living in Westchester, which is extraordinary, even better. I think one last thing. Tomorrow, Senator Cooney will be in Yonkers, and this is important. Senator Cooney is a new senator, but he's also the chair of Cities 2. There's a cities committee in the Senate that says cities, but basically it was New York City. But again, because I have the opportunity as leader to do a lot of different things. I've created a technology committee. I've created a committee for disabilities, and created a committee for women's issues. But I also created a committee that looks at cities outside of New York cities in a critical way. And I've asked Senator Cooney to chair that. So he's coming to Yonkers, but at least we know that other cities besides New York City now has a place where their particular issues will be addressed separately from New York City. And again, it is just an effort for us to make sure that people understand, that I understand, that we understand, that this is one state, and we all do better when we work together on behalf of each other. So again, I want to thank you, County Executive, for giving me the time. And again, I look forward to joining you again in the future. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Senator Andrea Stewart-Cousins. You've done an exemplary job in Albany for a long time, and we're all very appreciative. I'm personally appreciative of all the work that you've done on our behalf, but not just because of the county, because I know how much you put into it. I know how difficult it is to succeed in Albany, and you've made us all very proud. Thank you very much for being with us today. Thank you. Senator Andrea Stewart-Cousins, Majority Leader of the New York State Senate. And I mentioned, as I did a second ago, which is all of the things that we hope to do in county government, we want to do in coordination and cooperation with our towns, our villages, our cities, and also with our school districts and other governments. But we're all creations of the state of New York. Every one of those institutions, and our library districts, our fire districts, all created by the state of New York. So the relationship that we have with our Albany legislative leadership, with the executive branch in Albany, really defines how well we can do the things we can do. We have terrific members of the State Assembly and the State Senate delegations. I've served with them personally. Ken knows them all as well. We have an easy relationship. But we have one of the three people that's in the room, and Andrea Stewart-Cousins, so we're very grateful for her leadership. Ken and I will now go through some of the other things that we routinely cover as part of these updates, and we appreciate that we'll try to do this quickly to make best use of your time. We always chat a little bit about the COVID situation, and of course the COVID situation is what really began these updates a year and a half ago. Now that we're doing them once a week, we try to give you a picture of where we are right now. We're working off of numbers that were available on the state dashboard as of yesterday, which was Sunday, September 19th. The news in general is that the increase in infections as relates to Westchester County has been flat now for about 3 weeks, slightly below where we were 3 weeks ago, and that is a good sign. If you recall the general flow of things, we had an immediate outbreak in March into April of 2020, and we rose up very quickly to having as many as 12,000 active cases, as many as 1,200 people hospitalized for COVID. That number started to diminish in the back end of the spring in 2020, and last summer we got down to a little bit under 500 active cases, which is a big drop from 12,000. But when we hit the mid to latter part of the fall, as we headed toward the holiday season, that number rose again, and then by January 15th of this year, after the holidays, New Year holiday being the last of the clustered holidays, we were back up to 11,500 active cases, and we had in the vicinity of 600, 588 to be specific, as a peak of the number of hospitalizations. Well, vaccinations came in January, and we vaccinated, which we'll report on in a second, well over 85% of the people in this county, stretching out over time, and that vaccination effort has really been terrific. It's caused us a great drop in the number of cases. We were down at the end of June to the point where most of us thought this thing is just about over. However, the Delta variant came along, and our active cases had dropped down under 200 and then started to shoot back up. But where it has leveled off, its peak within the last month was about 2,800 active cases. That's a lot less than 11,500 or 12,000. So while there was an increase, and I know those of us, myself, Ken included, who are double vaxxed, felt very concerned that a person vaccinated could get the disease, aside from what that does to you in your way of looking at things, the amount of hospitalizations and the degree of fatalities were much less for those that were vaccinated. And in fact, the statistics have been advised, as we've been advised without seeing the specific numbers, is that it is generally those who are unvaccinated that get the serious cases of COVID now going forward, and also those that might suffer loss of life. So as it stands as of yesterday, on the basis of where we were to date, 2,314 active cases of coronavirus in Westchester County. Again, people who've tested positive and have not gone through the 2-week period of time under which your natural antibodies will fight off the disease. 2,314. If you go back 2 weeks ago, that number was 2,602. So a drop of 300 over 2 weeks. If you go back over 3 weeks, we were 2,797. So it is not a huge diminution. We haven't dropped 1,000 cases, but we have dropped over 400 cases in the last few weeks. And that was after 7 or 8 weeks of constant increase from that low point in June. So we look at the numbers to see trends. What are we seeing? And then to try to calibrate our policy as a county government proportionate to what we're seeing. And I think what we also look at not only is the information related to total active cases, but the information related to the number of people that are hospitalized. We now are 74 people hospitalized at the most recent number. I think it's 2 days ago. That number 74 is down over where we were the last few weeks. If you go back to the last day of August 31st, we had 102 people hospitalized. So to go from 102 down to 74 is about a 1/4 reduction in the amount of hospitalizations. And then, of course, the number of fatalities, which is an accumulative number. How many people have we lost within a week? That number is a little higher now than it was in that period in time of the latter spring where we were dropping dramatically, but it has not risen proportionately to the number of cases that are moving forward. All of this, everything being done by the state, being done by the county and the local governments, by the school districts, by public health professionals everywhere, is designed to stop people from dying, to try to make it less likely rather than more likely that we would lose them. And we've lost over 2,300 Westchester residents as part of this, and X 100,000 across the nation. We are not overly optimistic or overly pessimistic. We are realistic, and what the numbers show us right now is that if this flattening out is accurate, if we go another 2 weeks, 3 weeks like this before we are fully indoors, then our strategies of what we do will be proportionate to those set of numbers. I'm mindful that Governor Hochul and the state legislature will make decisions that are overarching for the full state. And actually, I've supported the state taking action over and above what the county does, because you don't need There's 62 counties in New York State, 57 plus the city of New York, so 58 governmental entities. You don't need 58 policies. You don't need a Westchester policy and then you cross the bridge into Rockland, which you might do every day. I've done that for work, with a different set of policies, and then a different set of policies in Putnam and a different set of policies in the Bronx. So I think it makes sense for the state to establish certain standards across the board. And we oftentimes, as a county government, are responsible for implementing state policies as they're established. The New York State Department of Health establishes a policy. The Westchester County Department of Health is given the discretion to implement the policy. We do have discretion in certain ways. So, for example, while I don't, as a county executive, have the ability to create a mask mandate universally across everybody who lives in the county, I have created more of a restriction for those who work inside Westchester County government, particularly in office buildings, and for those that come in to visit in the office buildings. And we're not doing it to be difficult. We're doing it to prevent problems from the circulation of the disease. So if you come into the county office building, when we're here in the county office building, vaccinated or unvaccinated, you wear a mask. When you get to your workstation, if you are vaccinated, you take the mask off and perform normally. That doesn't apply when you're outdoors. If you're at a county park, there is not an automatic masking policy at the county parks. So if you go to Kensico Dam Plaza and you want to walk around, you go to Tibbetts Brook Park, and you want to enjoy the outdoors, now you can do that without a mask. We try to make the policy proportionate to the level of infection and what we think we can do to address it. And if the numbers continue to go down, then that's the good news, and the policies, again, will follow that. If the numbers spike up, if we see the numbers getting back ever to the level, and I hope we don't come close to it, but if we come back to that 12,000, 11,000 level of infection, that means you're getting 250, 300, 400 people a day being infected by the disease, and it's running rampant again, then our policies will reflect that. But we look forward to the state legislature, and we know that the state legislature is dialoguing now with Governor Hochul on the broader issues, and we will try to use intelligent policy as we go forward. So for the record, we have, as it stands now, 2,327 fatalities due to COVID. Over the last week, we've lost 6 Westchester residents. Over the prior week, we lost 7 Westchester residents. And I say it every single time I talk about fatalities, every single fatality is a tragedy. I personalize it. When I lost my dad, when I lost my mom, those were tragedies to me. If you had told me that my father was the only person to die that week, that doesn't take any sting off the loss of somebody that you love. So the same would be true for the 6 families that are affected this week in Westchester County by COVID. We have had weeks where there were no fatalities, and we hope that that will be what we can report a week from today. But as it stands now, the fatality numbers as a percentage of things is still relatively low. The hospitalization number of the 70, 74 is nowhere near our capacity issues. So we're not facing the capacity issues you might hear about in some parts of the South or parts of the Midwest where they have large numbers of unvaccinated people who've gotten the disease, and they go to the local hospital, and the local hospital doesn't have capacity to handle them. And that's happened at various places at various times during the pandemic. We have, I've repeated this a number of times, Ken and I have to keep checking the number, somewhere between 2,500 and 2,700 hospital beds in the county and 160 ICU beds, and our hospitalization number in the mid-70s is a very low number proportionate to the inventory. And not all people that are hospitalized require ICU treatment. And generally, going on a ventilator is sort of the treatment of last resort. The doctors, medical community tries to avoid that at all costs. So with all of that, the numbers are encouraging, but we are not out of the woods yet. So we're going to continue to look at policies and ways that we can continue to deal with this pandemic. Given the fact that in Westchester County we've had very good success with vaccinations. And our vaccination numbers show, and this is straight from the New York State Tracker, that as of this day, we have 720,905 residents of Westchester County of the age of 18 and over that have gotten at least one vaccination dose. 646 of them have completed their vaccination series. So that means, do the quick math, that we're dealing with about 75,000 people that are somewhere in the 3 to 4 week waiting period between dose 1 and dose 2. But at 720,000 people that have had at least one dose, that's out of a total population of 1 million people, and out of the number of adults 18 and over, that's about 800,000. So about 200,000 are those Westchester residents that are under the age of 18, and then the 720 number. So we're drawing off of a pool of people that tells us that we have 87.4% vaccination rate in this county. Now, It's important to remember, I know this from my own life experience, both Ken and Andrea and others in the room have done this. We can live in Westchester County, we can work in Manhattan, we can work in the Bronx, we can work in Fairfield County, we can work in northern New Jersey or Rockland County. I've actually worked in almost every one of those places during my corporate career. So our vaccination rate alone isn't really as relevant as knowing what the metropolitan area's vaccination rate is, including Connecticut and New Jersey. That is for the people with more stripes on their sleeve than I have. But when I look at Westchester and I see that we're at this number of 87%, that is a very good number. That is a tribute to the people of Westchester that understand what the value of vaccination is. It's a tribute to the work that's being done by medical professionals all across this county. And I think the county plays a role in making vaccinations as available to people as is possible. We're still working with the state at Westchester County Center, which has been the central vaccination point throughout the course of the pandemic. We have 2 health clinics, one here in White Plains, one in Yonkers, that are issuing vaccinations, and Ken will cover in a few minutes some of the satellite locations, pop-ups as they're called, that are coming up. And we're planning those everywhere we think we can get a cluster of people that can be vaccinated to move things forward by a little bit. But that vaccination percentage is very good. And of course, if the whole country was vaccinated at 87, 90%, then we would be pretty much at that herd immunity number, which we're told is where you get to where the vaccine, where the virus just doesn't have additional people to infect, because everybody is relatively protected from it. We are still waiting to see whatever the final word is from federal authorization to issue an across-the-board booster shot for everybody. Now, if that becomes universally understood, that's 720,000 people that are double vaxxed that would then be eligible for the 3rd vaccination shot. My understanding is right now the discussion is with Pfizer. We have issued both Pfizer and Moderna and Johnson & Johnson. There are 3 different types of treatment, and each one has a little bit of a different follow-up. We wait for each of them to be reauthorized. So I happen to take 2 Moderna shots, so I would wait for a Moderna booster to be approved. And we're also seeing that there's movement toward vaccinations for those that are under the age of 12. Currently, you can get vaccinated from the age of 12 and over, but not under the age of 12. If that is authorized, then we're going to have more of a vaccination challenge. The need to vaccinate the population of Westchester County 1, 2, 3 times was never part of what I saw on my first day in office almost 4 years ago. But this is what challenges have come to our doorstep. The state has been a terrific partner because the state gets the allocation of vaccines from the federal government, which I assume purchases it from the various pharmaceutical companies, and then the state allocates it out to the different counties and the city of New York, and then we figure out how best to use it in what locations. So when we have an update as to the authorization of the other levels of vaccination that can be done, we will come up with a game plan. We'll publicize it. We'll make sure that everybody understands when and where and how you can get the 3rd shot, when and where and how you can have your child under the age of 12 vaccinated. And we obviously urge everybody to be vaccinated. It has clearly made a difference. I understand there's a lot of debate about it in some people's minds. You'll find anything on the internet that might contradict that. But it's clear to me. We were at 11,500 active cases. We've had active vaccinations, and that number's dropped dramatically. So clearly it has an effect. However, this county has not made a mandate out of it in any way, shape, or form, and I believe that comes from an understanding of how human beings go about making decisions. Some people will react negatively to the mandate, and they'll say, no, I'm not going to do it no matter what you say. We're finding that without the mandate, but with an effort to vaccinate, an aggressive effort to try to overcome objections, deal with people where they're at, how they view things, we are getting success in having more people vaccinated. We hit 80% a month plus ago, and most people thought we just about hit our maximum. But our persistence has gotten us up another 7%, and we think that can continue to go further. So it's a question of what's the best strategy. My experience has taught me in government, also in my private sector, where I was a sales and marketing executive, that people who believe it's the right thing to do are more likely to do something than people that don't believe it's the right thing to do, and that's what we're in the art of doing right now. We're doing a major league sales job on people to try to help them understand what the objections are, how do we overcome them, how do we get more people vaccinated. And here in Westchester County, it is working. It is working with our workforce. New York City took a different strategy. Under the prior governor, New York State took a bit of a different strategy. We dialogued with each of our different labor unions, and we asked them to be partners with us in this effort to promote vaccinations rather than making it a threat of some sort. Looking at the whole workforce of Westchester County, we have a total of 4,500 people that work for the county in some capacity. 8 of our departments or offices in Westchester County are now at 100%. And 22 of them, including the 8 that I've just mentioned, are at 80% or higher in terms of vaccinations. 27%, 27 individual departments, if you expand the universe from the 22 to the 27, are above 70%. And we've had some really positive stories. Our various offices, our law department in a number of our different categories, appeals and opinions and legislation, youth bureau, office for women, consumer protection department, solid waste commission, office for people with disabilities, tourism and film, 100% vaccination through all of those different entities. We've made tremendous progress with our budget department, our law department, our contracts and real estate area, Human Rights Commission. We've also had a lot of advanced vaccination numbers with our Department of Emergency Services and our Tax Commission. In every one of those components of the county government, we have made it an effort to try to get as many people up to 100% vaccinated, and we've made progress. And we're pleased with this. We communicate within the workforce to try to reinforce the behavior that's a positive behavior. And you get quite a number of people. When you have an office, there's 10 people there, and 8 or 9 of them have been vaccinated. They put dialogue with the person that isn't vaccinated. It's not the boss telling you what to do. It's your colleagues and your peers who are concerned that their health may be affected. We do all of that with as much practical common sense as we can make them. We'll mention, I guess I'm going to do the pop-ups. Ken is going to touch on some other topics. We have a couple of clinics that are planned for this week. Tomorrow, Tuesday, September 21st, we will have a clinic established at John Jay High School, which is in the town of Lewisboro, 60 North Salem Road in Cross River, right off of Route 35 and 121. You learn a little geography in this job. And that is from 2:45 to 5:45 at John Jay High School, and that will be open to anybody. But it's, we target any of the students that are eligible to get vaccinated. They can come and get vaccinated, the teachers, the administrators in the school district, or people from the community. And it doesn't have to be limited to people who live in Lewisboro. It can be from anywhere. And then on Wednesday of this week, the 22nd, we will have a pop-up clinic at the Albert Leonard Middle School in New Rochelle. And that's in the north end of New Rochelle, 25 Gerarda Lane. That's from 11 a.m. to 4 p.m. And we thank both school districts. I believe it's the Katona-Lewisboro district is John Jay, and the New Rochelle School District is Albert Leonard, for coming to us and saying we can do this and we can get a good situation ahead of us. In the area of school masks, the county government has no authority to require a mask, but we are a partner with the school districts in providing masks so that they have the wherewithal to provide them for their students and other individuals. We've partnered with the County School Superintendents Association to distribute child-sized masks and adult-sized masks for the students who are returning in person. We're going to be stopping in Mamaroneck Central School in Larchmont on Wednesday. That area was hard hit by Hurricane Ida. It's an area I know very well from my years of representation. In those situations, those children who are not yet eligible for vaccination will have the opportunity to receive a mask so that they can protect themselves and protect others. We have procured more than 200,000 child-sized masks for students up to 12 years old. Keep in mind what I just said a few seconds ago, which is there's 1 million people in Westchester County. There's roughly 800,000 people that are 18 and over, and then the amount that's under 18 is 200,000 in and of itself. We've obtained 200,000 child-sized masks, so that will involve for those who are up to the age of 12. So we're going to be able to provide for the school districts that need it, from the size of Yonkers, which is the largest school district, 27,000 students, all the way down to Rye Neck, which has 1,600 school students. We'll be able to provide that as they see fit, and Mamaroneck Union Free School District is the first of those. So with that, we're trying with vaccinations and with masks to help fight the disease. We're doing what we can as a county government with the assistance of the state, for which it would be impossible for us to accomplish that. Now, we've talked a lot about COVID here. The other major issue that was thrown at us just a little over 2 weeks ago was Hurricane Ida coming through the area and surprisingly leaving a tremendous amount of water, as high a category of flood incident as we've had over a long period of time, and it's devastated a couple of very particular places. So I'm going to ask our Deputy County Executive, Ken Jenkins, to go over some of the activities that FEMA has done and give you a little rundown on the aftermath of Hurricane Ida. Ken.
Thanks, George. And certainly because there was no shortage of activities that we had going on with Ida and Henri before that, there has been significant damage for folks both on the Sound Shore and Mamaroneck specifically, and on the Hudson side, specifically in Yonkers, and going up into Greenburgh, into other places where the flooding took place. So FEMA has set up 2 locations. And let me put a little asterisk on this one first. I'm giving you the Yonkers location first, not just because the majority leader is here and that's her district, but more importantly, the crowd at the FEMA Center in Yonkers is not as much as on the Sound Shore. The devastation is quite honestly just not the same, although devastation is devastation, but there's just many more people on the Sound Shore side, Port Chester, Harrison, and other places, Rye, that have had that impact. So go to the Yonkers location. According to information we have, the lines either are non-existent or much smaller at that Yonkers location. At the Will Library on Central Avenue, it's kind of centrally located on Central Avenue at the Will Library. It's assisting homeowners, business owners, and renters affected by the September 2nd severe storm and flooding from Hurricane Ida. So that FEMA Center, the Disaster Recovery Center, is a one-stop shop for federal, state, county, and city resources, including the Small Business Association, New York State Department of Financial Services, the insurance end of the game for the state, the New York State Department of Motor Vehicles, the County Department of Health, Department of Social Services, and in Yonkers, the Yonkers Office of Constituent Services, along with both Con Ed and the American Red Cross. That center in Yonkers is open every day from 8 a.m. to 7 p.m. at the Will Library, and certainly people should take advantage of that. There is the website that the team is putting up online, so you can see it at the scroll on the screen. There is a similar location in Mamaroneck, but as I stated, if you can get over to the Yonkers location just for balancing out of the services, the Mamaroneck Disaster Recovery Center is at the Village Courthouse, which is on Mount Pleasant Avenue in Mamaroneck, and certainly providing the same range of services. As the Majority Leader Stewart-Cousins said, Governor Hochul was at both locations, both in Yonkers and in Mamaroneck, touring the places directly, along with federal, state, and local leaders that were there to make sure that people in the community understand clearly that everyone is trying to do their very best to support them. As it regards to the people in the Sound Shore, specifically in the Port Chester area, because they're having challenges to get down to Mamaroneck, State Senator Shelley Mayer, Assemblyman Steve Otis, and County Legislator Nancy Barr are arranging for vans to go back and forth from Port Chester to the Mamaroneck Disaster Recovery Center. So there's one happening today in about 15 minutes at 3 p.m. today at St. Peter's Church. Tomorrow, the same location at St. Peter's Church at 10 a.m. and again at 3 p.m. in the afternoon. And then on Wednesday at 10 a.m., picking up from the Don Bosco Community Center, and then 3 p.m. also on Wednesday. So 10 and 3 at the Don Bosco Community Center, going from the Port Chester area down to the Disaster Recovery Center in Mamaroneck. And that information is up on the screen now. Certainly there's more information. You should call 914-934-5250. And again, there's many things that are happening in the community as regards to the disaster recovery. We continue to work with all the partners at every level of government, and we want to wish all those folks the best to get to those locations as quickly as they can. Thanks, George.
Thank you very much, Ken. We just want to highlight that we will be holding our twice-monthly municipal call this afternoon at 3:30, in which we invite all of the local officials from cities, towns, and villages across Westchester County to review some of these issues that we've talked about today, some things that are more directly germane to the local governments. We've established that during COVID, and we've maintained it in order to have a helpful dialogue between all levels of government so that the county government can be an active partner with the local governments in some of the issues for which there is that appropriate partnership. We also invite all of the members of the Westchester County Board of Legislators to participate, as well our state legislative delegation, the state senators and the state assembly members, and also representatives of our Congress members, so that we have a dialogue and an action list of things to do when we come out of a meeting like that. So that's going to be this afternoon at 3:30. We hold those calls twice a month. On a weekly basis, we have a Monday morning call at 8:30 with the school superintendents. There are 44 school districts in Westchester County. We usually get a pretty good attendance, and as in many ways just about COVID, as they try to implement the changes that have been established by state policy toward education. And we participate in that to go along with what those things are that the county can do to cooperate with the schools. That hasn't been a normal connection over the years. Usually the school districts report directly to the state education department, and the county is really sort of a sideshow player. But we do have a public health responsibility, and in some cases it's just needing an extra set of hands to help sort through all of these different complicated issues that school districts face, separate and distinct from what general governments face. So that happened this morning, and the community call starts at 3:30 today. I'm going to close out our conversation by mentioning that this is the second week of Hispanic Heritage Month, and we make an effort with all of our major ethnic groups to recognize their contribution to Westchester County from the dates of September 15th to October 15th. It is Hispanic Heritage Month. It celebrates the anniversary of independence for 5 Latin American countries that all happened within this time frame: Costa Rica, El Salvador, Guatemala, Honduras, and Nicaragua. And the Hispanic Heritage celebration really extends to all of the Spanish-speaking countries. There are, I believe, 20 altogether, as it's been identified. And we're releasing a new video that really celebrates those cultures that are right here in Westchester County. This video is just a small slice of what some local Latinos, Hispanics are doing to positively influence our county and our generations to come. And we'd like to share that video with you now. Hi, I'm Westchester County Executive George Latimer. This month, we're highlighting the contributions of the Latino community in Westchester County. My guest for this conversation is Martha Lopez. Martha serves as the Director of Minority and Women-Owned Businesses and Immigrant Affairs.
Thank you so much for having this conversation, and it is so great to celebrate Hispanic Heritage Month.
Let's talk a little bit about the music and the culture in the Latino community, which I understand is diverse, because you have people coming from many different countries that come together at this moment.
We have 20 Spanish-speaking countries here in the United States represented, all of them here in Westchester.
I'm very proud, yes. I'm very proud of my parents that they managed to bring their ideas here. My name is Cliff Dominguez. My family owns Cafe Veracruz and Sundance Kitchen here in White Plains. We have, tamales, we have a roasted chicken, the chilaquiles, the beans. And my family is originally from Puebla, Mexico. We specialize in Mexican dishes, Puebla dishes. Okay, so this is the machine we use to make our tamales. The leaf she's grabbing the masa, and then she's grabbing pork with mole over there, filling it up over here, and this is the tamale. So now she rolls it up in the aluminum, making the tamale.
La gente viene a comer de diferentes países, le gusta la comida.
People from different places, they come and eat, they try our seasoning, they try our food, they really love it, and that means a lot to her. It means a lot.
Now, we know that businesses have been affected across the board of all types. The COVID shutdowns of 2020 were dramatic, and even when we pulled out of the COVID, we haven't been at a full 100%.
We did close down during COVID for quarantine. We managed to come back. People started coming back.
Let's talk a little bit about the leadership in the Latino community and the role that education plays in helping people understand the challenges at hand and addressing those challenges.
I want to talk about one organization that helps so much with education, and that is Latino U.
Our work is so important to make sure that students have the tools that they need to be successful. My name is Cosette Gutierrez, and I'm the Executive Director of Latino U College Access here in White Plains, New York. And I'm a proud Dominican American. Only 24% of Latino adults have a college degree. We've seen our students go to schools as close as Pace and NYU to as far as Stanford and University of California. Over 56% of our students have decided to pursue STEM, which is really important. And they're joining exemplary companies right here in Westchester County. As a first-generation Latino graduate myself, I remember how important it was for me to return to my community.
It's important for young people to have good role models that they can aspire and see that it is possible for them to achieve success.
I rise to especially congratulate the Judge Walter Rivera from my district in Greenburgh. Through education and stick-to-itiveness, rose to become not only a lawyer, but the first Puerto Rican judge, the first Hispanic judge in the town of Greenburgh.
My name is Walter Rivera, and I am a judge of the New York State Court of Claims. My parents both came from Puerto Rico, and I now live in the town of Greenburgh, Westchester County. Latinos have played an important part in all aspects of this country, in the legislative branch, the executive, and on the bench. Latinos here in this county have made significant contributions and want the same opportunity that everyone else has. Go for the moon. Go as far as you can. And even if you fail, sometimes you learn more from taking a step back as long as you get up and keep going.
I want to thank Lisa Reyes, our communications manager, who did a fabulous job in putting together the video that you've just watched. Also, John Borst, part of our team, that also does a great job. Their combined professional skills really presented this in the way that I think is going to be helpful to share with people all across the county. You know, every month we encourage you to embrace our local cultures, our libraries, learn about the heritage. And for this month of our Latino brothers and sisters, as part of this Westchester mosaic, and in very short order, we'll be recognizing other ethnicities as we go forward between raising flags and doing things that just sort of add to that quality of life of Westchester County. So we've completed the update almost in a full hour. I do want to open it up through Catherine Chaffee for any questions that we may have received from the press.
From the Examiner. He asks, how would the county determine if schools needed to close in the unfortunate event of rising cases?
Well, the first line of action would be the school district recognizing through the testing program, which the county is working with school districts, that they had a tremendous cluster of cases within a particular school, might be an elementary school or high school, whatever it is. On that basis, the county health department would be involved in the front end to verify that this was something now that had been transmitted across the board. However, because the school district has responsibility to the state education department and our county health department has responsibility to the New York State Health Department, it involves some of those state resources reacting as well. So as much as we take an immediate county response, I think perhaps Senator Stewart-Cousins, you may want to talk about what happens at the state level when things like this occur.
Well, no, I think that you expressed it very well, County Executive. Obviously, we're all very, especially now with people going back to school, we're all really monitoring very, very closely. And our state ed, along with the Department of Health, works with the local, boards of education and so on and so forth to make sure, that there's not an overreaction, but the appropriate reaction for whatever the situation is. I think it's really important to know that we all take this very, very seriously. But we are also all very interested in, to the extent possible, making sure that our kids are able to be back in schools, because that is where the maximum learning takes place.
Thank you. Are there any other questions from our friends in the press? And if there are any folks from the press that want to follow up with us, you can contact Catherine Chaffee, our Director of Communications, 995-2932, and she'll be happy to connect with us. And if you have any questions as a follow-up for Senator Stewart-Cousins or for Ken or myself, we're happy to try to make that connection for those folks in the working press. We do invite members of the press to join us here at the county office building where we have these presentations when we're not out in the field, but we also recognize that we want to not put them in any kind of jeopardy of the disease. So we do this with a remote link, and hopefully that's helpful as they go about doing their work, because it's a very important role the press has as we go forward. With that, we'll thank you for watching. We'll be back again a week from today at 2 o'clock on Monday, September 27th. We'll give you another update on where we are with COVID and probably on Hurricane Ida and the bounce back from that, and then any other issues that arise. We thank you very much for your attention and time, and stay safe with you and your family. One more time, let me thank Senator Andrea Stewart-Cousins for joining us today, and of course to have Ken Jenkins and the rest of our team. We're deeply appreciative. Have a nice day.